Welcome to the ProVideo Pages podcast and webinar series. I'm Ann Gusiff, your host. Today I'm joined by Suzi Lee Schell, a longtime friend and colleague from our days in Northern California. Suzi is principal of Suzi Lee Schell Creative Design. A little bit about Suzi. During her 30 years of professional graphic design experience, she's had the opportunity to work with many different types of businesses and nonprofit organizations. At this point in her career, Suzi's favorite thing to do is work with people who are passionate about what they do and help them communicate that passion to their audience. Suzi is knowledgeable in executing both the creative and technical sides of graphic design, working backwards from the end product to expertly deliver files set up as required for each production, saving her clients time and money. Welcome, Suzi.
Thank you very much, Ann. How are you?
I'm doing fine today. I'm really excited about this webinar, and it's entitled Let's Talk Graphic Design, Essentials for Working with a Designer. And I cannot wait for what you have to say. So, Suzi, I'm going to go to the background, and I'll let you take it away.
All right, thank you, Ann. I'm so happy to be here, and I really appreciate you inviting me. So one of the questions that I get on a regular basis from people when I first meet them is, well, how do you know that a graphic designer is for you? And of course, some of that is going to be, do you gel when you talk to each other? Are you comfortable with each other? Can you speak openly? But do you really feel like they're hearing you when you're describing your business or describing your project? Do they ask a lot of questions? Do they ask them if they offer a free consultation? All of my new clients get a 30-minute free consultation so that we know that we're the right fit, that I'm the right designer for the project that they need. And if I'm not the right designer, that's okay. I have a wide variety of people that I've worked with in the past that I can refer to that I'm happy to collaborate with or refer business to them. And if you are interviewing your designer, find out, are they willing to do the research? So you might think, well, I just need a brochure, but really the designer needs to learn about who you are, what your business is, what your project is, who is your audience. They need to find out all of these things about you so that they can do their job effectively. So you need to trust the process. Every graphic designer has a process that they've built for themselves. They'll have a creative brief or questionnaire to ask you those questions that I was just referring to. Who is your target audience? Who are you marketing to? What is your business strategy? What is the project? What is the purpose of the project? Do a deep dive into your branding. What do your competitors do? And what sets you apart? And that's all knowledge that's really helpful when you get to working with a graphic designer so that they can do a really great job for you. So again, really looking at the background before you start the project itself. And that's a lot of what that beginning part with your designer is about. Really kind of going through and looking at that strategy piece. And then there's that big elephant in the room that I also get questioned on a lot, which is, well, I have Canva. Why can't I just do this myself? And you can. And there are a lot of times when it's appropriate for my clients to just say, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself in Canva. And that's fine. One of the things I've done with clients quite a bit in the past is I go into their Canva account and set up templates for them. So they have all of their brand guidelines in their Canva. They have their logos in their Canva, all of their colors and fonts and everything set up into templates so that they can actually go in and design simple things for themselves. They don't always need to hire me. Now, that said, if you are going to print or if there's some technical aspect to what you're doing, consulting with your designer or hiring your designer to do it for you is probably a good idea. I mean, I know QuickBooks. I'm fairly good with numbers. I understand basic math, but I hire a bookkeeper because she can go further than I can. She understands accounting rules and laws. She knows how to deal with my accountant She can do things that I just don't understand and don't want to understand because I want to spend my time on my business, not on hers. So there are definitely instances where hiring a graphic designer is more efficient. And then I'm going to touch really briefly on those logo design websites, especially now that AI is such a big deal. Yeah, for $25, you can have your new logo in 5 minutes. That's awesome. Not really so much, in my opinion, because in order to have a logo, what you need is branding. And branding is not your logo. Your logo is a piece of your branding. And that is a whole other webinar that I could get into, but don't do it. The logo design websites are not original artwork. They are not looking at who you are and who your target audience is and what your marketing is about. They're just giving you pretty pictures, in my opinion. This is all my opinion, but in my 30 years of experience, that's my strong opinion. So the other thing that you should talk to your designer about is, do they understand the technical aspects of their job? It's really important, whether it's your web designer or a print designer or both, or however it is that you are wanting your end result to be, that they look backwards. Your designer should start with your end result to get the best result. So for instance, let's say we're producing a brochure. Okay. So we're producing a brochure and your designer needs to know, do you have a print shop that you use that you really like? Do you have an existing relationship with your print shop? And that's great. Nobody should be pressuring you into using their vendors if you have one. But your designer also should be in touch with the print shop at the beginning of the job. And I can't stress that enough. At the beginning, before you've designed anything, let your designer talk to the people who are doing the production work at the end. And that allows the designer to set up the files properly from the beginning so that the end result is clean. Because that allows each print shop, each web designer, each software package, all of that has their own quirks and weirdness and equipment and software. Some of it proprietary, some of it not. But in order to really know, and what I always do is I go back to the end, to the production people, and I say, okay, how do you need the file set up? And that's how I set up the file, starting from the very beginning. So that way I've got my template, I've got my setup, I've got whatever I need at the beginning in order to properly set this up so that there's no surprises. Because surprises at the end are going to cost you money, either for your designer to fix it or for your print shop to fix it. It's going to cost you lost time to do those things. And honestly, if they just run with it, it could cause problems. If a print shop, say, makes these changes at the end, there are technical things that could go very wrong that would cause you to need a reprint at the end. And so just starting with all of the knowledge at the beginning allows you to avoid all of that. All right, so you have now figured out all of those working backwards principle parts and what your designer needs to be able to start, and it's time to get to work, which is great. You kind of have it in your head, you have an idea of what you want to do, and you're working with your graphic designer. And we'll take that brochure example a little bit further. So really, really important. First off, size matters. In graphic design, size always matters, especially if you're going into printing. Now, if you're going into web, size still matters. Whether it's your website, whether it's social media posts, whether it's an email newsletter, whether it's no matter what it is, you really need to figure out what size is the proper size so that it looks correct. But especially if you're going to a print shop, I had a client once, for instance, who was doing a newsletter, and it was a large format newsletter, and they were wanting to print with a specific shop. So I called the shop, and to discover that the size that they wanted their project to be was too big for the small press that was the more inexpensive press that was back in the client's budget. But in talking to the printer, we figured out if we cut 1/8 of an inch off of each side of this newsletter and used a little bit smaller sheet, we could fit it on the small press. We saved them probably $600 in printing costs, if I remember that correctly. And no one knew the difference. I mean, it was a very small change that saved them a lot of money. So, size matters. How are you sending it? Is it a mailer? It needs to be set up the proper size for the post office. So again, all this whole working backwards thing still comes into play here. So first off, if you are giving copy to your designer, make sure that you finish your copy. Make sure it's complete, it's proofread, that you're saying what you want to say. So when you give the designer the copy and they lay it into, say, continuing with our brochure example, they lay it into your brochure, minor edits are not a big deal and expected. But if you start rewriting blocks of copy, what's going to happen is your designer is going to be retypesetting all of that over and over again, which is really time consuming and it's going to cost you money, and it's not necessary. So it's great to take the time and have it complete before you give it to the designer. Make sure that you're really covering your content the way you want it to be. Proof it backwards. This is advice I give to everybody. Proof backwards. Start at the bottom, read it backwards. Your brain will not fill in the missing pieces if you go backwards. And just make sure, if there's anything that's missing or typos or grammatical issues or whatever that you can catch. Again, doing edits at the back end is not a big deal, but doing major edits you don't want to do. If you have specific logos or files that you want to give, photos, check with your designer about resolution. If you're not sure, have the designer take a look at it. You want to make sure that everything that you're working with is of accurate resolution for the type of production you're doing. So, because honestly, your designer's job at the end of the day is to make you look professional. That's it. That's the job description. Make my clients look professional. And so everything that your designer should do for you should be to that goal. There's a lot of potential problems that can happen if you have major edits after the fact. So always loop your designer in. Just say, you're done, you've approved it, you've gone to the printer. Make sure that you talk to your designer if you want to make changes. So you've approved your project. Now what? Well, keep your designer in the loop. That is still your designer's job. Whether it was me designing or whether it's somebody else, doesn't matter. It is the designer's job to make sure that the final outcome is what you expect it to be. So let them manage your production. Let your designer take a look at the printing proof that comes from the printer. Nothing should ever go to press without a printer's proof. And the designer is going to know exactly what to look for to make sure that it's correct. Check in on inks and papers and keep your designer in the loop to help you with those things, because that's what we're experienced at. And that's our area of expertise, to help you, again, look professional. So again, let your designer help you. That is literally our job. And so we can work with your printer, with your web designer, with your social media manager, whoever it is on the back end of your project, to make sure that it's correct for you. So, working with your designer collaboratively on all aspects of your job should be the goal. So I'm going to jump backwards for a second. A lot of my clients are really far away. I moved from the West Coast 3 years ago to the East Coast, and I have a lot of my clients still in California, which is where I came from. And people ask me all the time, well, I like to work collaboratively with my designer. You know what? With the way that technology is today, it opens up so that you don't have to work with your designer who lives next door. If there's a designer that is not local to you but is a good fit for you, you're able to really work collaboratively. I'll give a really quick example. I have a client of mine who writes children's books. She's 3,000 miles away. The books are bilingual. They're English and Spanish. I speak no Spanish. So we have always been very closely collaborative about the Spanish pieces of her book so that I can make sure that they're correct. And after I left, we were working on the third book, and what we ended up doing was screen sharing on Zoom, and she would give me edits and I would edit them on Zoom on the screen share. She was watching what I was doing in real time, giving me feedback, and it was this very fun kind of collaborative thing going on between the two of us. So I guess the point is that there is no reason why you can't find a designer that's right for you anywhere. It just opens up the workspace to be able to find the perfect person for you. So at the end of the day, the takeaways are, how does a graphic designer help you? Well, again, and I can't stress this enough, our job at the end of the day is to make you look professional. Graphic design plays an essential part in visually connecting with your customers. So it makes your business look as professional as you are. Consistency is very important. Create a consistent brand for your company. Make sure that all of your work, all of your design has your colors and your fonts and your logo and your voice and your overall messaging for your company. And that is what the designer will do for you. Trust your graphic designer's process. All graphic designers have a process that's a little different than each other. It's their process, but it's the process that each of these graphic designers, that every graphic designer has built to make sure that they're working efficiently and carefully and at the best of their ability to be successful for you. You know, your graphic designer wants to help you. So good communication between you and your designer is key. They want to help you. Ask them a lot of questions. Let them ask you a lot of questions. Make sure that your designer is clear on what your priorities and objectives are, because that's how they can work best for you. So thank you. I appreciate the time to be able to share with everyone.
Suzi, thank you so much for laying this out so clearly and presenting why somebody should be doing the things they're doing to make the graphic designer's job easier. And at the end of the day, I love what you said about a graphic designer's job is to make their clients look professional. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's when you really take it, you strip it away, and that's what's most important. And I would say it's the client's job to make it easy, because not only does that affect the end result, but it saves money, it saves time, exactly. It saves hassle, and it's just good business sense.
Although I have found that it's easiest for the clients to make it easy on the graphic designer if they understand the process.
Exactly. So ask those questions. Yep. Thank you so much. And if anyone hasn't listened to the podcast that Suzi and I recorded, I encourage you to do that. And the link will be down below, as well as a handout for this session. Thank you so much, Suzi.
Excellent. Thank you.